happening now. Liverpool are set to part ways with head coach Arne Slot after a run of poor results. The pressure has been mounting, and the club hierarchy has decided enough is enough. Slot, who replaced Jürgen Klopp, failed to meet expectations at Anfield. Liverpool FC are now preparing for a new direction, with big names already being linked. Massive changes incoming, this story is just getting started.
And what did you think about Arne Slot? How significant a week is it for him?
It's a huge week, but I'll be honest with you, it's no huge than every other week. I mean, he's a Liverpool manager. He's expected to get results. He's expected to be challenged for league titles. You know, challenging the higher or the later rounds of cup competitions. And obviously, Paul Gorse from the Echo there was talking about the Champions League. If Liverpool go on and win the Champions League, then he's here next year. But the questions are always going to be asked towards the end of the season. If you don't win it, if you don't win the FA Cup, you don't win the Champions League. Even if you get into the Champions League, questions will be asked because I think you need to win trophies.
Yeah. And what does success look like this season for this Liverpool side?
I think what Robbie's talked about there, I think they've got to go hard in the league. Never forget that league form. You've got to nail on that Champions League. And they've got, obviously today will say a lot, whether they've got something to look forward to going to Wembley in a semi-final or not. And then Champions League games are huge, aren't they? They're absolutely massive for this season to kind of keep that momentum. And I think that Mo Salah news will help them. I think that will give them a real target. And you saw how Curtis just spoke then. They're emotionally invested in what they're doing. It's just that little jolt towards the end of the season.
Was that as bad as it's been under Slot, do you feel?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think when you've got fans leaving after an hour, which is very unusual for Liverpool fans in particular, when you've got people talking afterwards about the lack of fight rather than anything else, really, I think this is not what you expect from Liverpool. I think a lot of people will be hurting around that. And I think with Slot, I think it's going to be quite clear with him. If they don't get Champions League football in one shape or form, either by winning it or by qualifying through the league, I think he will go. I do think he'll go. I think there are an awful lot of mitigating circumstances around that. Obviously, it's been a difficult season. The passing of Diogo Jota, in particular, people shouldn't underplay that. But I think they will look at it very forensically and think we have underachieved and we're not quite sure we can carry on like this. Now, Liverpool are saying the opposite at the moment. They're saying they're fully back the manager. But I think that the fact is it's been made very clear they've got to qualify for the Champions League. And if you listen to Arne Slot talking after the game yesterday, he talked about the importance of qualifying for the Champions League because he knows that's the situation. It may be very tough and a bit unfair on him, considering what's happened this season, the way it's been. But I think Liverpool are going into a very big summer for them. They'd won last season, obviously, but I think this summer it'll be interesting what happens off the pitch as much as on it. In terms of, we're looking at Richard Hughes maybe possibly going the sporting director. The talk of him going to Saudi Arabia is not going away. Again, Liverpool is saying he's going nowhere, but he's only got one more year left on his contract, as has Michael Edwards, as has Arne Slot. So the three of them at the moment are going to go into the final years of their contract as things stand. So that makes me think we're heading for a change of sorts. So it could be even at the top of the club, or it could be in the dugout, and obviously on the pitch as well. There'll be lots of changes. So I think there's an awful lot in play at the moment with Liverpool. And I think he's under a lot of pressure and he has to qualify for the Champions League.
Another deal that's come under scrutiny, Jack, is Mohamed Salah's new contract. Of course, the Mail on Sunday goes, Mo's farewell tour threatens to turn into a funeral march. He has been at the centre of what has happened at Liverpool last season and this season, the poster boy of their success and almost the poster boy of their failures as well. What is the approach now? Because they want to give him the send-off that he deserves, and yet they need to qualify for the Champions League and go as far as they can in this season's Champions League. Does he warrant the starting place now?
Not at the moment on his form, no, but their options aren't fantastic. We've seen, I mentioned the Brighton game where Slot was changing people around left, right and centre and nobody impressed. So maybe just because of who he is, he keeps that place. I think there's scrutiny on the deal, which, yes, in hindsight, looks a mistake to have given him that contract, but it would have been deemed madness not to have given him the deal at the end of last season. He was absolutely incredible. Won PFA Player of the Year, FWA Player of the Year for the third time. Drove them to the title almost on his own. So it would have been insanity not to have tried to keep him last season. No one could have seen the incredible drop-off coming this year. They can't get sentimental if Slot's the one whose job's on the line, and between him and Salah, it's a player that they clearly don't see eye to eye. Salah's come through him very publicly with that interview did in the mix zone at Leeds. Slot isn't going to concern himself with making sure Salah gets a nice send-off if getting across the line into the top 5 or winning the Champions League is on the line and he's not convinced that he can deliver what he needs, and there's not a lot of evidence that he can.
I think the whole farewell tour thing's a mistake. I mean, basically, they're not in a position where they can have a farewell tour.
No.
You know, there shouldn't be any sentiment. There's no sentiment. They've got to finish in the Champions League. They've got to do better than this. It's interesting yesterday that obviously Salah had the chances, didn't score, his confidence looked drained, and he stayed on the pitch till quite. And you're thinking he should have come off. He should have been first change. And it's almost like you're thinking Arne Slot's thinking, can I take him off? Yeah. Can I take him off? And he took him off right at the end. And you're thinking, well, what's the point of that?
I thought exactly that.
He should have been first change. He should have come off.
Exactly that. When he made those changes, you're thinking, well, it's got to be Salah.
And I think even Salah was probably surprised he stayed on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, because it would have been the right change to get him off. And I think that the problem is they can't afford to let this become a sentimental thing because it's going to undermine them.